My Time Podcast with Tchoua.
Man, I see you're in your studio.
I'm in my studio, man.
I see the mic in the background.
It's a junky place these days, man.
Hey, man, you got to do what you got to do.
Gotta do what I gotta do. Gotta keep it real. I was like, am I gonna dress this thing up? I'm like, nah, this is what I got. This is where I come from. I got a lot of unfinished work to do in here. But I think that kind of speaks to what I feel like I need to be doing musically anyway. There's just so much to do. So
hey, man, the important thing, I was like, when you shared the album with me, I was like, oh man, okay, I see you. Because I know you've been playing, like, you've been into music for as long as I've known you, since like way back in high school and everything. And I'm sure you've been like in the church and everything like that, playing the piano since you were young, like young.
Yeah. I started when I was 15.
Nice.
I started when I was a sophomore in high school, man. My parents' neighbor let me borrow his keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
and he told me I could borrow it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks turned into 2 years. I held on to it, and I just self-taught, learned to play. This was before YouTube. I used to, lock myself in my room and just practice radio station, whatever I could hear, trying to pick it up, trying to learn it. And before I knew it, it started to make some sense to me. And man, it's just been rolling from there.
Awesome. Man, it's funny. Well, not like a hard pivot, but one thing I was like, I've been like, you've been doing that since 15. I've been getting into podcasting within the last 2 years, and I was like, okay, like, I think I finally got it. I finally kind of got it marked down to 2 questions, or at least one question that I like to ask. So let me ask this for you and for the audience. Matt, who do you say you are?
Man, you hitting deep from the jump. Oh my gosh.
I mean, you could start from the surface and then we'll work our way down.
Man, it's funny. So I would definitely say, first off, I'm a man of faith. That's the one thing I never forget is what drives me and what motivates me, what has changed me over time is a genuine walk with Christ. And that's all of the characteristics and everything from integrity to treating people right to being compassionate. All those are rooted in my faith. So that's the first thing, is I'm a follower of Jesus. The second thing is I'm a family man. I'm a family man. I've always been very close to my parents. And you know this from us growing up together. It's always been close to my parents, my family. We've been through some hard times, some tough times, and I think in those moments it changes you, it transforms you to it gives, I think, more perspective and meaning to life and what matters. And for me, my parents have been in the trenches with me, and I've been in the trenches with them, mountain high, valley low. So and then within that, I'm a husband. Been married now, it'll be 3 years in September.
Congrats.
And then as of September 2020, I'm a dad. So it's my faith, it's my family, and then there's all the other stuff, which I think at the heart of it all is my music. And while I'm a professional too. I work in economic development, something I've really gravitated towards and have really have a passion for, which is helping drive job growth and job creation in community. So I've been very fortunate to do that at a high level in my day job. But beyond any of that, and I think, at the foundation of all of those is who I am as a musician. And that's what I am. I'm really a musician. Even when I'm not on the keys, or even when I'm not, making any kind of music, ultimately our life is a song, and how we want that song to be sang, and what we want people to say about us, both now and after we're gone. We're all writing the lyrics to that day by day. And so I'm a musician at the core of who I am. From 15 on to now, music is what drives so much of what I do.
Correct.
And even while I'm sitting at my office at work, I'm still humming music. Or I got YouTube playing at just the lowest level, audibly possible from my iPhone. But everything I do is in an atmosphere of music. So I would say I'm a man of faith, I'm a man of family, and then I'm a musician.
Awesome.
That's who I am is there's music somewhere, always around. That's just kind of it's almost like how dolphins excel in water,
Mm-hmm.
and cheetahs, some of the fastest animals in the world, excel on ground. For me, it's an atmosphere of music.
Mm. Man, I love that how you said that, an atmosphere of music. I feel like um how do they say, music is almost like a universal language where you may not speak the same language as somebody else, but it's like whenever you get the music, especially if it's like Afro beats or something like that, for some reason it's like you just hear the drums or you just hear like the melodic sounds and you're like, oh man, okay, that just hits my soul real quick.
You can't help but move. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't matter what mood you are. It doesn't matter what kind of day you had. You may not even be a very rhythmic person, but there's something about that Afro beat sound and just the syncopation.
Right.
You the shoulders before you know it, you just vibing to it.
Right.
It's funny, like play Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. Oh my gosh, doom, 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 doom. It just
Yep.
moves you in such a way. Yeah, that's what music does, man. It's almost like how it's magnetic. It's
Mm.
magnetic. And like you said, yeah, it transcends culture, it transcends language,
Yeah.
it transcends background and experience. Man, good music just it changes your perspective.
True. Very true. Like, it's crazy because what would you say your exposure to music was from like a youth till like becoming an adult?
Definitely at church.
Right, right.
um,
I was gonna
that's
say we have that similar experience where I was like, I heard nothing but gospel music growing up.
that's it, man. That's it. That's what started it all was being in church. I come from a very musical family anyway. Um,
Mm,
Going back to definitively my uncle Eddie. He started a he helped start a choir at my alma mater
mm,
way back in the 1970s, University of West Georgia, called the United Voices Gospel Choir.
okay.
Um, in Carrollton. Shout out to UWG.
Right.
And then he comes back home to Dalton and starts this choir called Young Gifted and Black,
Mm,
YGB. But my uncles, aunts, my dad all say that he taught them how to sing. Uh,
mm,
he was kind of some of the first exposure to music in a very lively way,
right.
outside of just traditional hymns for our family. And that's just trickled through, my generation and the generation after us is we're a very musical bunch. I'm
Mhm.
I'm not even the best pianist in my family. That goes to my cousin. We call him Ro Willie. But he has a very heavy jazz background. Um, but across the board, my family, when we get together, we sing. And then you've got several pianists to choose from.
Yeah.
We've got drummers in the family, so we got a band all together. So church was definitely the second place, but as I explored, I realized that I've got a bunch of singing uncles and aunts too, and cousins. So
Yeah.
maybe there's a place for me there, something I should be doing on the music side, and started on the drums. Just started exploring with that, and before I knew it, the guy who was playing piano at the church at the time, he moved away, and so um, I'm in high school, and I've been playing for so long. Realized we need somebody to play piano, and so
Mm,
that's what kind of led me to want to learn. Was I knew I kind of had an idea of where I wanted the music to go,
Right.
but didn't have the technical ability to know how to get there. So I just started practicing, man. And golly, I mean, God gave the gift, but I put in a lot of time and still do to playing and getting better. And then in college is really when things took off, because that's when I started my exploration around jazz. Um, the jazz world, the beauty and the music of jazz, the textures, the complexity, and um, college just really brought in a whole nother side, a whole nother dimension of music that I didn't know. I went from
Mhm.
just being able to play gospel stuff to the jazz, which that changed my life forever.
Right.
it's
That's
like
like
it's
a
like it's like economics or the ABCs. Like
mhm.
once you learn this stuff, you can't unlearn it. You can't unsee or deprogram yourself. Once you learn to count,
Right.
you good. You squared away forever. Once you get exposure to jazz in a musical way, um, it you're you're done. It changed. You're
Right.
changed. It makes everything better.
Man. So I know you said you went to University of West Georgia. Like, did you make that decision knowing your uncle went there beforehand, or is that something you found out once you got there?
Yeah, I'd already known he went there. I actually didn't want to go to West Georgia. I wanted to go to UGA,
Mhm.
or I'm still a big Bulldogs fan, or I wanted to go to Morehouse.
Mm.
Um, either of those two schools are where I saw myself, and those kind of being the college destinations for me. But
Right.
I had a brother and a sister in college at the time, and the tuition at both of those schools, it ain't cheap.
Right.
So we had to make a business decision. Um, you know, it wasn't that I didn't want to go; it just wasn't among my top choices.
Mhm.
But I applied anyway, got accepted, and sure enough, it kind of became a legacy thing. I knew about my uncle. He met my aunt, over there. So
Mm.
not too long after they finish at West Georgia, they get married. So it kind of already been a legacy thing anyway. I knew about United Voices before I went, just because of family stories, and I'd heard them sing before. But to go back and then be a part of that legacy too,
Mhm.
um, that certainly has meant a lot to me. To me, it's meant a lot to my family. We just had a huge United Voices Gospel Choir virtual reunion 3 weeks ago, and
Nice.
um, they gave a lot of shout outs and a lot of thanks to my uncle and aunt, kind of pioneering the way back in the '70s. And I'm just honored to be a part of that legacy.
Right.
Even with the family. But I think going to West Georgia was the best school decision I could have possibly made, just because of the friendships. And I needed to be in a smaller setting coming out of high school, my little wild tale. So that was good. That was good for me.
Wild tales. What are we talking about, Matt? Maybe you need to tell me something I don't know.
It was when you go off to you get away from home, there's you experience so much.
Right.
And like you and myself, we grew up in very structured environments.
Yeah.
You get that initial culture shock.
Mm.
I don't have to check in with anyone.
Right.
See what I'm doing? Freedom.
They say, what do they say? Preachers' kids are the worst.
PKs are
It's
the
like, don't be putting that on me.
right, right. I do. I'm not in that category.
Right.
Uh, yeah, it was definitely a shock. I appreciate the upbringing. Uh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things you have to you try for yourself.
Right.
It's just like you being told, don't touch the eye of the stove even though it's hot.
Right.
Touch
You
it
get
anyway.
curious.
Yep. There was a lot of curiosity, especially in my first year. But to ultimately be around a lot of good friends that were, um, kind of helping keep me accountable in a lot of ways, and vice versa.
Right.
That was a good thing, and like I said, those friendships endure. Even to this day, my guys are my guys, and
Yeah.
some of the lady friends are still we still keep it tight. And I think that friendship, that accountability is so important to know you're
Hmm.
not going through life on your own or by yourself, but you've got somebody who can be there with you and understand you and walk through it with you along the way.
Hmm.
It's made a huge difference, and the same is true, no doubt, even on a deeper level with um I'm very fortunate to have my wife and us just navigating things together. It's wonderful.
Right. That's good. I'm always reminded, just thinking back on like how did I get here, and I'm always grateful for like wrapping up in high school, meeting up with you and me, Kojo, Friday nights, because I remember like my parents still do this, like they'll have Friday night prayer, but I was like, I like it and I like the upbringing, but I was like, I want to spend time with people around my age, and like you two were a year ahead of me. So I was like, "Hey, we get together, and there's a fourth guy, but for some reason, I'm always struggling to remember his name because it's like I kept in touch with you, and then once Nee went to Southern Poly, like I followed him, and I was like, okay, I'll go here too, like figure out what they got going on. He started in architecture, I went to civil, but like those sessions, hanging out with you guys Friday nights, it was like I felt like part of the cool kids because like we finally had like our own little get together group, and it was um it was just nice, like, just that time spent together, like, I learned a lot from you guys, and a lot of good things.
Brothers, man, brothers forever. You know
Yeah,
it. Yeah, it was Colton was the fourth guy.
that's his name.
And he actually doesn't live too far away from me.
Okay.
Yeah, but so yeah, Friday nights, our Bible studies or just hanging out,
Yeah,
chopping it up, talking shop, or Adrian. Adrian was the other guy too.
yeah,
It was a variation of either Colton or Adrian, one of
mhm.
one but yeah, we hop in my whip, man, and just go up to a
Go up to knees, and it's like, okay, Nee was almost like, how would you say,
oh
the professor, where I remember, like, freshman year, he gave me the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And I was like, "No, Nee, I'm too busy." And it's like he was already on it, like reading the right books and different things like that, opening his mind and being open to like different ideas where it's like you come from structure, and in my head I was just like, "Okay, I'm here at school to get this degree, so I got to do everything, like put in the hours, like study everything like that." But when I graduated college and I finally read the book, I was like, "Okay, I see what you were trying to give me." And I was like, I was kind of upset with myself, but then I like double time and just grabbed all the books I could read, 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 read. And then after a while, I just had to take a pause and just be like, I actually have to apply this stuff. Like, otherwise, it makes no sense. Like, you have 100 plus books you've touched, but like, how much of it are you actually doing? And then in reading some of them back, I'm like, "Hey, okay, don't feel so bad because, like, you did apply some of it." And one thing that sticks out to me from the Rich Dad Poor Dad book is the Chicken Little story, and I think that really helped me out last year where I was just like, you can't panic when everybody else is panicking, and, like, you can't just be like, the sky's falling," like Chicken Little. And it's like, no, like more times than not, if everybody's going towards something, just go against the grain. And that will save you like so much headache. And it's like you just at peace. Like just the past 2, 3 years have been challenging, but I think I've grown the most in these years, just even doing this podcasting thing where I'm meeting with old friends, meeting with new friends, but being able to like express myself and be able to unpack a lot of things where it's like, okay, I hadn't thought about that. And then when I listen back to it, I was like, wow, okay. I could literally see where the dominoes were taking place to be like, you're under a lot of pressure right now, and this isn't gonna work out. Like this is just gonna blow up in your face. And it's like, lo and behold, like everything came to a screeching halt for a bit. And it's like you just kind of tuned out for a little bit, but thankfully family checked in and different things like that. But starting back is just really being mindful of what's going on, what am I doing, what do I need to get done, and just do one thing. Like that's the thing that just stuck with me. Just do one thing. Like, you don't need to be on every social media platform. You don't need to be doing podcasting, real estate, consulting, coaching, engineering. It's like, just pump the brakes. Just do one. Find one that works and continue. Like, it doesn't mean you can't have the other ones. Like,
Right.
everything comes in its seasons.
That's it, man. You know, that's so key. There's a song by a rock group called The Birds, and
Mhm.
the song's called "Turn, Turn, Turn to Everything." Turn, turn, turn. There is a season. Turn, turn, turn.
Bless the people, man. Bless the people with that voice.
That's it. Oh man. But hey, the whole song actually comes out of Ecclesiastes 3. I had no idea. I think the song was like number 1 on Billboard charts in
Mhm.
1965 when it came out. But I can attest, man. I've been going through a seasonal change myself, and just being open and honest with you, man, and kind of sharing with the group. Um, my wife and I, before our baby girl was born, we moved from where we were living
Mhm.
to where we live now. And a part of that was we realized we needed to be closer to family.
Mm.
And we also wanted to start our family close to family.
Right.
So that meant for us a change from the metro Atlanta area to, close to back home.
Mhm.
And that was it wasn't an easy choice, because for myself, the last almost 8 years of my life have been in metro Atlanta.
Right.
You know, Atlanta just abounds with opportunity for whatever it is you're looking for. You can find it in Atlanta.
Mhm.
I found success in economic development. I found success in music. I found success in even just building new friends and relationships.
Mhm.
All the things I sought were, there were like-minded people there.
Right.
But we chose to move back home. What that meant for me, though, was I had a longer commute. I was, now commuting from where we live now in little bitty Calhoun, Georgia, to we love Calhoun, by the way.
Yeah.
Um, from Calhoun to Alpharetta every day. And for those that don't know, the track there, that's 61 and a half miles one way.
Ooh.
That's a long drive. It's like an hour and a half. And so, um, eventually I knew I needed to find something closer to home. It was easy when we first moved because we were remote, but
Mhm.
when we started going back into the office and, those remote days where, the rhythm worked for me turned into a situation where I was going in every day. And, um, that meant for me that I was exhausted all the time.
Mhm.
That goes on for about 6 months
Yeah.
before, here recently a door finally opened for me to work closer to home, that I'm very grateful for. And I start in that new, work role next month.
Right.
But I can tell you, man, you know, there is it's so important to understand the seasons you're in. Like you said before, um, those seasons of knowing when to hold on to something, of knowing when you need to grow in a certain area,
Right.
also knowing when you need to let go in some aspects of life, or when you just need to kind of hit the pause, or put, a few matters on the back burner until the timing works best. And um, I think when we learn that, we grow from that. It gives us a better understanding of where we need to be, to make better sense of things, make better sense of life, and understand that where we are is where we can be of value, or where we can be of service, or where we can be of help, and vice versa.
Right.
The nourishing that we need is going to be in that season.
Mhm.
We have to understand, what that season is. And so when it came to the move, and to the job change, fortunately, we kind of understood that particular season of life. And man, I see so much growth in you. I think the last time we were together was Thanksgiving 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And just how wonderful that was to link up, and just us being so busy, with life and all, but the growth is wonderful, man, and it's raining outside right now, and
Yeah.
that long drive, every day, 5 days a week, and I know some people have it worse, but for me, it was a very tough situation.
Hmm.
But I've learned in that that was some of the water I needed to grow. Just like with a seed being planted, um, you know, plants grow in the dark a lot of times, or those seeds start to sprout. It
Yeah.
starts off being planted underground, and the rain comes, and that seed's being beat down on, and it's thundering and lightning, and it's just not comfortable. But eventually, all of that noise starts to make sense. The chaos starts to make sense as daylight begins to break through,
Right.
and eventually the tree becomes, a beautiful plant, or a fruitful tree, whatever it is. But I think the same is so true when we go through those seasons of discomfort. There's nothing but growth on the other side. And fortunately enough, we have so many great books and authors, that have gone through tough times and have experienced that, and can help us best understand even how to navigate those seasons.
Right.
Um, it's something, I think you and I both kind of share in our love for really just being bookworms. I know for me, it's at least 30 minutes a day. I have to read something.
Right.
Um,
Have you always been a bookworm? Because I know I haven't. It wasn't until I got that itch from like reading Who Moved My Cheese, and then I made it around to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Richest Man in Babylon, and all those that are like self-help, but like thinking, economics, that type of thing. Like, have you always been a bookworm, like
I
growing
have,
up?
I have.
Gotcha.
It all started from my sister.
Hmm.
Our sisters being good friends growing up.
Yeah.
But my sister Tabitha, she used to drag my brother and I to the library, even when we didn't want to go.
Hmm.
Uh, but I appreciate her taking us there, because that's when I started to check out books. And
Gotcha.
at that
Right.
time, it was books about football players and basketball players. But naturally, that grew into how to navigate a career,
Hmm.
finances, music production, you name it.
Gotcha.
Someone's done it, someone's put it on ink, someone's documented it, and
Hmm.
now it's there for us to learn and glean from, and like you said, apply.
Right.
And I'm the type of reader that goes like 4 or 5 books at a time, with just bookmarks and ink pens and highlighters sprawled everywhere. But
Hmm.
chaos makes sense to me.
Right.
Uh, so I'm reading a book right now on. I actually have it right by me. The Mixing Engineer's Handbook.
Okay.
It's so
Okay.
good. It's so good.
What's it look like? You got it. You got it right there.
Yeah, 1 second. This bad boy here.
Ooh.
It's so good. It is so good. The author's name is Bobby Ozinski, and I've
Okay.
actually heard him speak in a recent in a recent webinar. Um, the guy knows his stuff,
Yeah.
and as I'm learning, as I'm growing myself to be beyond just a musician,
Hmm.
but I've started to pick up engineering.
Mm.
That's the whole processing and equalization, or EQing as they call it,
Right.
expression, to ultimately get music, from the recording to it being radio ready and ready for
Mm.
release. Mixing and mastering are kind of the other sides that take place behind the soundboard.
Right.
And it's funny enough, I just started doing that last year at church, was just doing the live sound. But now I have a whole studio here, and I've got all this old gear that I've collected through the years,
Hmm.
and a lot of it is beginning to make sense for me. And a lot of those principles have even been applied to my most recent release, which is Closing Right Minds, where I actually did
Yeah.
all the mixing and some of the mastering myself. First
Nice.
time ever. I'm so it's not perfect, but I'm glad for how it turned out,
Yeah.
because the reception has been wonderful.
Yeah.
And that gives me confidence for the next time and the
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah.
Now I'm even beginning to work with people who are sending me music and say,
Mm.
can you mix it? Can you master it? Even from what I still think is very much an embryonic endeavor,
Mm-hmm.
it's beginning to grow. And, just like with the podcast, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I think someone once said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Yeah.
You just have to take that step, and you don't have to know everything, but
Mm-hmm.
the bridge between potential and reality
Mm-hmm.
is action.
I
And
love that.
take that action, the potential will never be realized. It'll never be materialized. It will simply sit there.
Yeah.
It's like a seed that hasn't been planted, or a seed that you would want to hold on to for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that seed's got a lot of potential, but that seed means nothing unless it is planted.
Right.
That's where I am right now, man. That's kind of that's the season. It's a season of change. It's a season of a new door opening on the job front, but also new doors opening on the music side.
Right. Definitely tell me about the album, because I was like, that's one of the things that kind of like prompted me. I was like, hey, like let's jump on the podcast, because I was like, of course I want to have you on, but it's like more reason to now, because you got something that you created and you can put out there and share with the people. Like when you shared that thing with me, I was like, okay, like I see you, Matt. Like I've always kind of tried to keep an eye and just be like, oh, what's Big Bro doing? Like what's he doing over there? And just seeing it, and I hit the first track and I was like, did I get the right one? And then I heard it, I was like, oh, okay, I see where you're going with it, because I was like, the reason I questioned myself is like if I got the right one, because I was like, okay, I know of like his piano like jazz background, but then you hit me with something a little different, and I was like, I like this. And then it blended in, I was like, oh man, I like this. And I'm not just saying that because it's like you're my guy and we go so far back, but I was like, you got something.
I appreciate that, bro. Yeah, so um Closing Right Minds, actually CDs came in earlier this week, but
Nice.
the yeah, so the project actually started back in I guess 2020, the beginning of 2020 is when I just started putting together ideas and assembling ideas of songs, but nothing
Mhm.
really complete. It's just like how you may order a bike, uh,
Mhm.
or a piece of furniture.
Right.
So yeah, a very recent experience we had is we ordered some outdoor furniture,
Hmm.
but when it came to our door, it was all in boxes.
Right.
Now, I don't profess to be the most handiest of people. My wife is actually better with a nail and hammer than I am.
Mhm.
She ended up putting all this stuff together. It wasn't me.
Right.
Um, it's like when you get all those different parts, but you have to assemble them to make
Mhm.
them make sense. That was what I ended up having on my hard drive, was just all these sessions of music, but they're a bunch of incomplete or fragmented ideas. And as we started going through um, last year,
Mhm.
man, 2020 was just tough. It was a tough year on the emotional front. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people had some spiritual challenges. The coronavirus and the effects of that. You had the um, social injustice coming to the forefront.
Mhm.
You had a lot of racial tension, and you had probably the most divisive presidential election in history.
Right.
Um, you combine that with the resultant effects of the the hurt, the anxiety,
Mhm.
the depression, the oppression, the fear that people felt. Um, I'm processing all that myself with a pregnant wife,
Mhm.
and um, the demands of work,
Right.
really becoming um, heavier, for what I had to do, even working from home at that point.
Mhm.
we're sitting in front of our screens all day.
Right.
And so there's a lot of stuff to respond to. The lines between home and work kind of got blurry. So it's like, when do I put my work stuff down? Oh, you
Right.
can't. You can reply to it because you're at home now. So,
Right.
but all that kind of culminated into the songs and how I was, kind of feeling, processing, going through things, to channel some of that emotion and a lot of that
Mhm.
energy and those experiences. And a lot of it started to make sense over time. And the song you're referencing is Gear Up, the very
Mhm.
first song
Yeah.
on Close the Right Minds. And I'll admit it's the
Appropriately
first
titled.
time. Yeah, absolutely. The the it's my first time ever doing anything kind of on a trap style.
Mm.
Heavy 808s hitting out the gate, just boom, boom, what?
Right.
You feel it down in your chest. Um, but I think that really kind of goes with a lot of the raw emotions of last year.
Mhm.
Coming from a lot of the pain and systemic pressures and all the different change, it just felt like something was about to break.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel with those 808s. It's just this raw emotion coming out. And it kind of alludes to the title, which is Closing Right Minds.
Mhm.
And that's actually a biblical reference. There was a man who had a number of different issues. The Bible calls him demon possessed, and Jesus
Mhm.
heals him. At the end of the day, the Bible says that he's sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right minds. And I
Mm.
think that speaks a lot to how such an encounter ultimately leads to the pathway of peace, even in a storm, even when it seems like, the sky is falling, or, it's just one piece of bad news after another. There
Right.
is a solution, and there is still, even in that chaos, there is the pathway to peace. And so, um, after all the narrative of last year is kind of how, I ultimately felt is I can't worry about um, I can't go through my day just worrying.
Right.
I can't go through my day just completely anxious. I can't go through my day totally down in the dumps and depressed. There's still a lot of good going on too.
Yeah.
And so that's what Close and Right Mind speaks to, is there's a lot of good. And if you search for peace, you can find it.
Yeah.
And so, that to me kind of represents the wholesomeness of the experience that even I've been through, and my family and I've been through, even through some hardship. And so then you get to Gear Up, the first
Yeah.
one, that grimy, gritty, let me tell you what it is kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And that just comes from the raw emotion and the raw pain of the last couple of months.
Mhm.
And so from there, it's 9 other songs. The
Yeah.
second song is Change the Channel. And what that simply means is, if you don't like what you see, change the channel. So much negativity on social media and in the news.
Yeah.
But there's also the reality that we too can be part of the change.
Mhm.
We can have a conversation with someone that we may not see eye to eye with, but if we can work towards any kind of reconciliation, understanding, or healing,
Right.
we are too part of the change. That common phrase, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
If you don't like what you see, change the channel. But I think that also speaks to, if there's a lot of negativity on your social media feed or on the news, you don't have to watch that.
Yeah.
You
Just
know,
cut it.
your mind is not a trash can. If there's a lot of negativity on it, just change what you consume.
Yeah.
Make the difference. Um, and then it kind of meanders through ultimately to what I like, the last song called A Laugh and a Half, which basically means at the end of it all, there's still joy. There's still a reason to be joyful. There's something to smile about. If you have to create a gratitude journal, or if you
Mhm.
have to wake up in the morning and write down 5 things that you're grateful for, do just that, because I think the overconsumption of negativity is poisonous,
Yeah.
and it's toxic, and it's contagious.
Yeah.
But to remedy that, you got to find those things that you are most grateful for, and just put a magnifying glass on those.
Yeah.
Make those big. Put emphasis on those, and watch your whole demeanor and disposition change.
That's
And
good.
so that's what closing right minds is all about. Is even in a chaotic mess, there's still good. There's
Mm.
still reasons to be hopeful.
Yeah.
There's still reasons to be joyful. And you're not going through it alone. You're not by yourself. We're navigating through this thing together. So it's really been a joy to create and put together. The first project I came out with was Mellow Density back in
Mm.
2019.
Mm.
Times were different
Yeah.
then. Closing Right Minds, comes at the beginning of, well, it came out last month, so still kind of early on into the year,
Mm.
and just really the packaging of those experiences that are not just mine, but I think are also shared across the board. And so I'm very pleased with the reception of it all, and how far it's gone. 3 weeks ago, it hit number 8 on Amazon's new releases in jazz.
Nice.
Had no idea that was coming,
Right.
especially as an independent artist. When you don't have the resources of a big label and a machine pushing you.
Yeah.
You're kind of doing it all yourself, you and a few friends. So
Hey, but that means you're doing something right.
yeah, you're right. It is a positive indicator, I think, of, hey, we somewhere along the way we did something we should have done.
Mm.
And I think that was an eye opener. Creates more gratitude in me, and then I think it's a motivator.
Right.
To say, hey, there's much more music in me. There's much more on the way. I'm excited about what's ahead. I'm appreciative and grateful of the support and the community that's kind of being built around it. And so that's Closing Right Minds. It's all that. There's only one song with lyrics, a song called Just Stay by one of my good friends, Trey Suttles. And other than that, it's really telling the story by way of a jazz piano.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it, man. The man, it's like, what? Let me ask you this: what's something you gained from 2020?
I would say physically, I've gained a daughter.
Mm.
Well, physically and really spiritually. I became a dad, and if you ever plan on doing this someday, man, it's like you probably heard your dad speak about it, or other dads, but it changes life instantly. Just your whole perspective. Things you thought mattered or were very important.
Yeah.
You kind of realize, it has a way of reorienting your priorities. I'll put it like that.
Right.
Realizing what's most important, and for the dad to really help, the dad and husband to really kind of help set the tone, set the standard, to provide. There's something in the motivation of waking up early in the morning, whether it's to work or on weekends. First thing in the morning is coming here into the studio, but realizing too how important rest is,
Right.
and the downtime, and kind of going for me from a go 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 pace to slow down, smell the flowers, enjoy that time with my wife, enjoy that time with my baby girl. So I would say I would say that is the biggest thing, is our daughter Ida.
Yeah.
The way that she has just brought so much sunshine into our lives. I'm better because of it. So I'd say that's the biggest takeaway of 2020 was in a 19-pound 7-month-old girl.
Yeah. 19 pounds.
She's chunky, man.
Man,
Donkey.
she's ready to she's like, hey, I'm here.
I'm telling you, man, she is not a lightweight.
But I mean, that's an awesome response. But of course, you gained the album because it's like you started working on it in 2020, and it's like it's
Yeah.
crazy to think how many positive things came out of 2020, and just like when you really take the time to change your perspective, or at least put your attention to one thing to be like, okay, let me unpack some of the things I already have in the background and not be consumed with just what I don't have or what may or may not happen. It's like we don't control the world. And I've been listening to this book called The Psychology of Money, and I think you'd really enjoy it. I found it on YouTube randomly, or I was thinking maybe it found me through my listening habits and things like that. And it's just talking about um, really when you talk about the psychology of money, it's not money necessarily because it's like that's something tangible that we can either see. But when you talk about money, obviously people talk about being rich or being wealthy and understanding the difference and why certain people make the decisions they make, which highlights the psychology of it. But it's really looking at, say, recent times like the 2008s. Even I think it does a little brief in there about the pandemic upcoming, so he must have revised it in 2019. And just kind of going back when you think about the how even the idea of retirement came about, or how people thought of um, how they're going to save for the future, or before we even had airplanes, how people were so concerned and like, oh man, this is so impossible, this isn't happening, that's not happening. And it's like um a lot of that's the chapter I was at, is saying like why pessimism's so attractive. And it's like it's easy to be pessimistic. It's easy to be like, okay, this is all going to fail. You actually get recognized for that, as to where if you come in as like the optimist to be like, hey guys, like this is going to work out. We've been through the Black Plague, polio, SARS, like Ebola. We've been through all these things. So like the world isn't going to end tomorrow. But like people, like there were a couple of people I remember last year I was in Puerto Rico helping out with the FEMA effort, and a couple of people were looking, and like people were just in a mad panic, glued to the screens and things like that. You had people like on the constant watch, the constant counter, just like, oh man, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. And it's like you kind of get what you hope for. Like whether a lot of times what I'm learning this year is that it's not just in the things you say you want, but also in the things you say you don't want, because like you're attracting that, you're almost praying for it, to where you're saying like, oh man, I hope this doesn't happen. And when it happens, it's like, oh man, I knew that was gonna happen. It's like, yeah, that's where you placed all your attention, that's where you placed all your focus. And um what is it? It's easy to blame God for the bad things, but not be grateful for the good things. And it's like all things work together for those that love God. And I remember kind of growing up somewhat with a misconception, or I don't think I actually had the misconception, but just coming across so many people that had the idea that bad things don't happen to good people. But it's like, what makes you think you're so good, that you're so much better than the world? Oh, we're supposed to be set apart from the world. We're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. It's like, yeah, it's good to quote these things, but you need to quote them in context. And you need to understand that just like you might have gotten the good news and you might be trying to win souls and this and that, it's like your soul may need a little saving too before you can go and actually try to help people. And when I say that, I'm not attacking anybody, I'm just speaking to myself, because I can see myself on the screen right now.
I'm
And
with you.
it's like just understanding that and embracing that. It's like, okay, spend the time to go through counseling, to go through coaching, and not just like, I guess there's different forms of it, but the person that I've been able to link up with, I met before I started podcasting. And the idea was like, okay, hey, I stopped doing engineering work for the bit, and like laying around not doing anything isn't beneficial. So it's like maybe I should retool my resume, put it back into the job market and see what's available. But I thank God for Regina, because in her answering the call, she really prayed on it, and she was like, is this really about a resume? It's like something like one of these is not like the other. Something doesn't line up. And it's like it's almost like a divine intervention. When we talk, is like we always do like a Zoom call, because that way it's like I can see your face and she can see mine, so she can like see your posture, your demeanor, and everything like that. And it's like, yeah, we'll get to the resume, but let's fix this right here. Let's fix your self-image. Like what is going on? What's got you so down? Like you're young, like you should be vibrant. I just turned 31 the other day, and my dad sent me this picture where he got it framed from when we were back on Thornton, I think Thornton Place or Thornton Ave, where it comes up with like Walnut.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a completely different person, like the poor innocent child before the woes of the world comes in. And it's like you just see like the joy, and I'm like, that was a different life, but that kid's not, he didn't just die and pass away. It's like, no, he's still a part of me. And it's good to remember like where I came from. And even in that time, if I think back, there are some negatives I can focus on, but it's like, hey, in spite of whatever was going on, there's like a how would you say, a moment in time that was captured where you can see like, oh man, okay, there's still joy. In spite of what you think or thought was going on, there's still joy going on. So like you said, gratitude, man, is everything.
Bro, yes, you hit it right on the head, man. What you focus on expands.
Yeah.
And it's not that even as believers we're just immune to, gravity affects us all. It's universal.
Yeah.
Even if you were to look in the Bible, man, the disciples and apostles were beaten. I mean, they went through stuff, and there is no guarantee in the Bible anywhere that says because you believe you're immune to, or
Yeah.
you can't be affected by. No, we're in it. We're
Yeah.
here. We're
Right.
here.
They were hunted and killed too. So
Yeah,
it's like if you
right.
really believe what you're gonna believe, is like lay down and die right now. It's like, okay.
Absolutely. Right.
Because I think I heard ET or someone say is like, I have more respect for Muslims than I do Christians, because sometimes it's like a Muslim is willing to die for what they say they believe in, as to where a Christian's like, if you say, "Oh, you ready to die?" It's like, no, no. Oh, who's God? What?
Right.
What? Oh, no. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, man. It's real. It you have to embrace the reality. The reality of the world we live in, and um, it's not like we're walking on air just because we believe
Mhm.
that that's something else. That ain't truth.
Right.
That's pure. Um, and then I think that there's always going to be something to there's always going to be something to be fearful of,
Mhm.
and we can choose to feed that, or we can choose to. There's this jazz song called "Accentuate the Positive."
Mhm.
There's something there. There's always something we can look at, strive toward, believe for,
Right.
that really calls out the best in us, and that really brings out not just some all things hunky dory pie in the sky belief, but something that's really good. We're told to think on those things that are good, noble, praiseworthy.
Yeah.
That should be our state of mind. It's not
Right.
to ignore what's happening around us. It's not to be completely out of touch or out of pocket
Mhm.
with the state of affairs that we live in, and even the realities around those.
Right.
But um, we still, like you said before, you have to go against the grain of even the most pessimistic and most doomsday-ish of narrative and rhetoric. Because if it dominates your mind, once it gets your mind, it takes everything else.
Yeah.
Eventually, what you're thinking and what you're meditating on is all that eventually is gonna manifest itself out one way or another. And if that's the way you live, and if that's the way you conduct yourself, then um, things things may not be so good for you.
True.
But to always know that even in dark times, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, the sun still shines even over the most desolate of places.
Yeah.
There's always something to be grateful for and to be mindful of that. There's always something to laugh about, something to smile about,
Hmm.
and that can never be forgotten. It's those that believe that who end up becoming the those who make the world better, those who change the world, those who blaze the trail for life to be better for themselves and for others.
Right.
Um, just to be crazy enough to believe and know that, hey, there's a possibility that everything ain't falling apart.
Yeah.
But uh, you know, so, as a society, we are so programmed to expect the worst.
Yeah.
Um, when really, truly, you think about the people who did go against the grain, and the people who did say, you know what, even though times aren't the greatest, or even though I don't have the most resources,
Hmm.
there's something that I can still do to be of impact or to be of change. And you know that that's where the real growth is. That's where the real I think that's where we are the best of who we're supposed to be, who we're created to be.
Right.
Um, and it's easy to be a critic. It's not so easy to be a creator. It's easier to consume than it is to go out and make something. It's
Yeah.
easier to sit on the couch and be a couch potato,
Yep.
or you can get out, change the world, and make couch potatoes. It's up to us. It's up to us. And I appreciate you, man. This has even inspired me even more, to go out and do more, and
Yeah.
try new things, and venture out, because you know why not us?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? And ain't nothing holding us back.
Right. But I
And
mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I've that's been kind of an awakening experience to me, even with closing right minds, is you can literally, with your faith, you can create the future. You
Mhm.
can create that trajectory. It took sitting in a studio, shutting off my phone for an hour or two at a time, to create an album that eventually hits top 10 on Amazon. That took belief in me to say, I can do this.
Mhm.
And it's never been done before. Or some things I took from, the people I admire: George Duke, Herbie Hancock, all these greats, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, these people that I listen a lot to, that I pull from and use their influences in my music to create something that's unique and true to me. But in this day and age, there's nothing stopping us. All this wasn't done with the help of a label, and I'm not knocking labels, but
Mhm.
this was all done from a tiny little studio, in a tiny little town. And sure enough, now it's making noise in the jazz world.
Yeah.
And I think we have to ask ourselves, what's stopping us? What's holding us back? And is that hurdle real, or is that hurdle perceived?
Right.
Regardless of whether we've made it up in our minds or not, what strategy are we going to do to address it and get over it, so we
Right.
can move on and move forward?
And I like the follow up that you gave. It's like, what's going on, and what am I going to do about it? Because it's like, it's easy enough to just ask a question of, it's like, oh, what's the problem? It's like, yeah, there are plenty of problems, and I think that's why like the verse says, you have to focus on those things which are good, which are noble, which are righteous. Like, I may be misquoting it, but it's like you have to focus on the good, because natural tendency, you're going to focus on what's bad, because I guess, as they say, historically, from a human perspective, before we had the shelter, the clothing, um, just the shelter and the food, that we don't have to rely on it every single day. Be like, okay, what am I going to eat today? It's like, whenever you're worrying about that, you have to be thinking about, hey, what's around the corner? Is there a snake trying to bite me? Is there a lion chasing me? It's like, we don't have to think about those things now, not as frequently, because we're not in the wild. But it's like, okay, focus on the things that are going to take you a little bit further. And if you're building something, maybe you think about what's not going to happen. But like, there's a story about the German tanks. Like, everyone knows how Germany is so advanced with their automotive technologies. So I guess during the world wars, they had these great big tanks that they had on the battlefield. And after they sat for a period of time, maybe during the winter, like, they all failed for some reason, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was like mice had gotten in there and eaten up like some of the wiring, so they kind of short circuited. And it's like, that's not something you think about as much as you might be like, oh, I want to think of all the problems. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna be there for a minute. There, you got a lot to think about. Like, it's not just going to be, oh, let me just do this and this. And it's like, you don't have to do a bunch of things. Like, for you, it took taking an hour out, shutting your phone off, just to be like, no notifications for an hour. And it's like, some people may think, oh, an hour is not a lot, but like, hey, if you can carve out an hour in a day, just even an hour in a week, if you've got to break it up into bits, like, that's when they talk about compounding interest. You're in economics, like, you understand what that means. And like, sometimes it's hard to see, because it's always like that small step that you're taking. For me, it was like deciding in my mind, like, hey, I need help to do something that I'm not doing. Obviously, I can tell myself, hey, like, you can update your resume, why pay somebody? But then it took enough humility to be like, let me get help, because what I say I can do, I haven't done.
Yeah.
And I'm either going to sit here and keep debating, is like, yeah, I can do this on my own, I can just all do it, to where it's like, let me get help. And then even with this, like, the idea was just have conversations with everyday people and highlight them, who they are, what they do, to where someone else can see themselves and kind of have that glimmer of hope, that
Yep.
in spite of what you're going through, like, what you do still matters. And it's not your job, it's not your family. Like, it starts at the core with you. And then once you establish who you are, like, all those other things that build on top of the foundation you have, yeah, it has more substance. And whatever comes, like, it might shake the foundation, it might rain, it might do everything else, but you're on that firm foundation, and you can continue to grow, continue to build. And that's a beautiful thing in itself.
Man, that's so true. That is, I mean, you hit it right on the head with that, man. It starts inwardly before you can build outwardly. Um, some of the old folks say you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
It's so true. Unless you are full of those right things, it's knowing that the future will be better,
Yeah.
that I can make a difference, that I can make an impact.
Yeah.
And I have goals that I'm working towards, and I'm looking to be better today than I
Mhm.
was yesterday. And I'm
Right.
looking to grow in this particular area and get better than I was even at this time last year.
Yeah.
And working towards that. Like you said, it has truly been um, an hour here and an hour there that eventually led to whole songs being created for Closing Right Minds. And
Yeah.
that's what it took was the investment of time from those fragmented pieces, almost like um, writing a sentence, just putting together this word here, or I've got this word here, how do we make it all make sense? How do we
Right.
make all these different ideas and musical elements? How do we blend those together to make those make sense? And I think that's the story that even we're all writing is, I know I'm good at this one thing.
Hmm.
I'm better at this one thing. I've experienced this. I'm weak in this area, and I may
Hmm.
need help. But to string those together to make those make sense over time, and then us being able to um, write that story, and then throughout the day we share that story.
Hmm.
It's with the people we touch. It's with the people we communicate with. It's with the people we help, or even the people that are counting on us. You
Hmm.
know, in and of itself, because we're the book that people read, we in a way are sharing that story. We're
Right.
writing that song. It's those beautiful lyrics now coming together. So when people think of Asher, or when people think of Matthew, they think of all these pleasantries, these wonderful things, and maybe the way that we've perhaps made an impact on their lives, at some point in time.
Yeah.
Hopefully those memories invoke smiles. But even though we talked about, not being immune to the bad times,
Hmm.
how did we respond?
Right.
And was that response beneficial? Was that response helpful? Was that response good for those around us?
Yeah.
Um, it starts on the inside. Happiness, joy, peace, man, those are inside jobs.
Hmm.
Getting to reach your goals, and wherever the next steps those goals may lead to, man, those are done inwardly. Those aren't um it doesn't take a corporate boardroom or a team of 50 to get that done.
Right.
It just starts with the very decision you make with, hey, today I'm gonna go against the grain. Today I'm
Yeah.
gonna be different. Today I'm going to choose to be different. Today I will change my perspective about a matter. And maybe this is not all bad. Maybe this is good. You know it. It's how we respond to those that truly changes outcomes.
Hmm.
And I think that's what we're here to be. We're here
Right.
to change outcomes, man. We're game changers.
I love that. I feel like that's a perfect point to end on. I'm like, if I say too much more past that, I might just string it along too long. But I appreciate you, Matt. How can people find the album, or like how can they get the CD?
Yeah. So, Closing Right Minds is available on all digital media outlets.
Mm.
So, if you like listening to your music on iTunes or Apple Music or Amazon or Spotify, Pandora, Tidal, however you consume music, you will find Closing Right Minds there. We've got some hard copy CDs that just came in. As an independent artist, you have to work with different distribution networks to get your stuff out there. So, my hope is that hard copies will also be available to order from Amazon.com. But in the meantime, all digital platforms, it's out there. My main website is idavonmusic.com. That's the name of my music production company. And then, of course, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Matthew A. Thomas. I'm there.
Nice. I'll make sure to link all that in the description so that once the episode comes out, people would just be like, "That." You just keep getting those notifications on your phone, just like bing, 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 bing.
But there's this thing called Linktree, and I just found out about it last year. So
Mm.
the Linktree has just all these different links, because I just kind of spat off a lot of things right there.
Yeah, you
The
load
link
them up.
Yep. The link tree lines them up, centralizes them, and wherever you want to go it's all a click away.
Yeah. It's funny. I got to make sure. I had to check mine the other day or last month. I was like, let me make sure when I'm posting these stories and things, like I'm saying link in the bio. It's like, does the link actually work? Does it take them where it needs to go? Because I'm like, if something's broken here, I don't want to sound like a broken record and see, well, like, yeah, 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 go to somewhere that doesn't even work. So it's like I made sure I fixed it, and it's like once a week I'll check back in, just be like, does this work? Does that work? Is that working how it's supposed to? Okay, good. If not, like fix it and just let the people know, hey, it's all an issue, fixed it. Just trust me this time.
Up and running.
Yeah.
Up and running.
Awesome. Thank you for the time, man. I appreciate it. And I'll be reaching out hopefully more frequently. At least I don't want to make false promises. I'll do my best to reach out this quarter.
Hey, it's a two-way street, brother. I got to do a better job too. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast though. I've really enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure. You know, we go way. We're brothers forever, man. And I'm so proud of you. And thanks for the time.
Thank you. And you're welcome.
Absolutely.
This is the It's My Time podcast with Tchoua.